good. It's good news. I think Man United fans have complained for a long time that the upstairs is a massive problem. And there was a bit of concern when Ratcliffe only got 25% of the club in the takeover. But it seems like that talk of him having full control of the football side of things is actually going to pay dividends if he's bringing in I think his name is Barada from Man City. He's now looking to bring in Ashworth. He's obviously clearing out Deadwood and bringing in his own people who've got an idea. And these are well-known people who've done good jobs at previous clubs. So it's a good sign. You can't be mad at it. Hopefully the talk of 2025 start date is wrong. Hopefully they manage to sort something out for this summer. But yes, it can only be a good thing from what I see.
And Paul, as it was reported by Football Insider, sounds like Eddie Howe was disappointed. It sounds like Eddie Howe was disappointed with. I'm going to cut that and do that again. As reported by Football Insider, Paul, it sounds like Ashworth was disappointed with Eddie Howe's involvement in recruitment. What do you make of that in terms of their recruitment over the previous few seasons?
You look at the recruitment and you look at the academy projects that they've got. I think Dan Ashworth is more than just recruitment. I think he's stabilised the academies, restructured the academies, restructured the scouting network, he's restructured the scouting structure. And I think he's made the club in a place where it doesn't necessarily rely on one person. And I think from Dan Ashworth's point of view, you look at the job that he does, you look at what he did at Brighton, you look at the player recruitment side of things there, you look at the restructuring he did there. I think there's a lot more voices at Newcastle. I think the manager has more of an input than possibly other managers that he's worked with have. I think the ownership and the directorship at the club and the scouting network will have more of a say. I don't think he's got as much of a free hand as he thought he was going to have there. And the opportunities for him to go to Manchester United, in all honesty, let's be honest, the recruitment can't be as bad as it was last year, can it? I mean, you look at the side of things where they are now. He's got an opportunity to take a European giant, and the structure that Manchester United are putting together behind the scenes, he is going to be given free hand. There's not many people that are coming in there at Manchester United that are going to want to take over the footballing side of things. He will be making football decisions, and I think that will really appeal to him. And I think the thing with the Newcastle, sorry, Lewis, I think the thing with the Newcastle thing is as well, as we're finding out, and we did the pod before on Football Insider, that their hands are tied. They may be the richest club in the world, but actually they've got to tie by the same rules that every other club has to. And, until their income matches their output, they've got a lot of book balancing to do. And recruitment might not just be as easy as going splashing hundreds of millions here, there and everywhere. It's looking like they're going to have to lose some of their best players.
And Daniel, what would you make of Paul's comments about your recruitment last summer and then your aims hopefully for this summer?
I think it's quite a bang on. I think everybody knows the recruitment over the last, probably say 10 years has been pretty bad. You can probably count on one hand how many good signings we've had. But that said, there's been a different direction with Ten Hag. I haven't agreed with a lot of the signings that he's made. I think some of them have just been for the sake of having a familiar face for him. Anthony, we've spoken about before, that spending £80 million on him was a disaster. There was no explanation for it whatsoever, other than he's worked with him before. But you feel like someone like Ashworth, with his connections and his experience, especially in the Premier League, you'd expect him to have more of an idea of what would work and what is good value. So that would obviously be a good start. If he can, whether Ten Hag is still at the club or not is a different conversation entirely, but if they can kind of form a partnership, if you want, of a profile of player and a budget and work towards it together, can only be a good thing.
I think we can get onto Ten Hag, absolutely. But do you think, Daniel, that from a United perspective, we look at it from a senior point of view, do you think they're making the right choice in going for Ashworth, or actually do you feel this is quite rushed? Because really, the news came out of the blue, and then a few weeks later, it sounds like the deal is going to be happening.
I would say it's probably the right thing. I think especially if he's unhappy at Newcastle, which has been claimed that he's not so happy with not having the free hand and not having the total control. I think the stories have been out for a good few months now about interest and it potentially getting firmed up once Ratcliffe was in. Obviously, it's moved very quickly this week and is now looking like it's probably going to get done in the next few days. I think it's a good decision. I think there's obviously always going to be this person might have been better, this person may have been better. But I think generally you're not going to get many people better than Ashworth in England that are available and willing to come ASAP. So I think it's a good decision.
I think what he gives you as well, I think he just gives you the whole structure. Just touched on it before, but excuse me, he's not just about player recruitment. He's about the whole structure of the club. At Manchester United, we've spoke about it numerous times. There's fundamentally so many things that are wrong behind the scenes at that club. But it's the scouting network he'll restructure. He'll restructure the academy. He'll restructure the whole way that club does things, right from the under-9s all the way through to the first team. And he'll put a structure in place that will last for years. This isn't just a short-term appointment that will be a quick fix for the first team, because I think they've got to go through a bit more pain to get to where they want to go to before they can get there. This is a long-term appointment for a club who used to be, and probably still is, one of the biggest in the world. And an opportunity for Dan Ashworth to do that, I think, was a real head turner for him. But also from a Manchester United point of view, the recruitment for them, they're disrupting other clubs. You look at the guy they took from Manchester City, disrupting their neighbours, disrupting Newcastle. All of a sudden, Manchester United seemingly are coming back to the table with somebody very serious, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe at the helm, making big decisions and actually going out there and getting the best people.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I think to mention as well. Obviously, Nicky Butt did a lot of that a few years ago with the academy and bringing in young players from abroad who were already outstanding before the Brexit rules kicked in, and then Nicky Butt left. And the academy's done really well in recent years. You've got players like Kobe Mino, Hannibal, Garnacho, who've come through into the first team. And I think the under-18s have won 14 out of 15 games this season or something like that. So he's obviously done well, but having someone now come in to continue that, because after he left, he didn't really get replaced properly either. And that's added to problems upstairs. So again, Ashworth, he's, like Paul said, he's going to be able to do more than just recruitment for the first team. But those situations, the whole club has really struggled. I think it's only going to be a good thing that he's in and he knows what he's doing. He's got a proven track record, and this is going to be a challenge for him that he's going to thrive in. He's going to enjoy the fact that he gets to go to a big club and have control, and he's going to be able to do what he thinks is best. And we've seen that that's worked before, so I can't see how it can be a bad decision unless he doesn't get what he's promised.
I mean, the only question with that kind of Paul mentioned that I'd like to touch on is that, I mean, Paul, you mentioned in there that it'll be from the under-9s all the way up. There's obviously lots of overhaul that needs doing. Surely that's going to take years there. That doesn't really sound like I know this move is not a short-term move, but that could be a really long process, Paul. How long would we expect that to take for an overhaul of that magnitude?
But listen, fans won't be interested in the overhaul behind the scenes. The immediate impact in the business structure is impacted on the pitch. You know, whatever you do, whatever you put in place behind the scenes, the truth is the first team is where the success is generated and where the money is generated for the football club. And from a business point of view, the first team has to be successful. You put a model in for the first team, you put a style of play in, you put a manager in. I personally don't think that Ten Hag will be there beyond the end of this season. I mean, I think he's on trial. I think they've had a great turnaround. I think that the results that they've had of late, they've been more of what would be expected. Before that, they've lost too many games, conceded too many goals. I think he's got between now and the end of the season to basically prove himself to Dan Ashworth that he's the man to take Manchester United forward. If he's not, and Dan Ashworth doesn't see that, if he's got another way of thinking, then he structures a first team, a style of play, a manager, an identity that then drips through. I mean, when you talk about restructuring behind the scenes, it's the scouting network, it's the people he brings in, it's the people he brings with him, it's the contacts that he brings with him, it's that little black book that we quite often talk about. You know, you look at Brighton scouting network. 4 million for Caicedo, sold on for 102 million. I mean, those are the type of scouting networks that he has. And you look at Cucurella at Brighton and others, Ben White that he brought in at Brighton, sold on for huge fortunes and profits. And these are it's not just his knowledge, it's everything and everyone that he brings with him. And yes, it will take a while. And like I said before, I think Manchester United and the fans, they've got to go through a bit more hurt before they get to where they want to get to. But they're certainly on the right track at the moment.